Now, when you get a patient to finish sentences, I'm coming here because this one girl said, I'm overweight. I want to lose this, or I think I do, she says. Because lots of people come to work on something, and when they get into it and they get right down to it, they don't want to give it up because it's very important to them. These are like the eating disorders. They have a great payoff and a great function. And people don't want to give them up. They say, well, I should, and I'm supposed to, but they don't want to because they pay off so well. Now, what I want to show here is that the payoffs for our hang-ups are more than just one. They have many different ways that they pay off. And there was a group therapy of highly gifted children, and they finally decided that all of them would write a sign and put it on their chest. And the sign said, I'm so smart, I make myself sick. It was a play on words, because the higher your IQ, the more ingenious hang-ups you can get and have them figure out. So it's really funny, and that's why finishing sentences is so amazing. And you can learn all this stuff and say, well, now let's see, according to all the rules, John should be doing this, this, and this. And these are the reasons why he does them. So John comes in, you say, John, what do you want to work on? He says, well, I want to work on doing poor me all the time. And then you'll say, well, okay, let's finish some sentences. I do poor me because. And you may see something like the models, and you may see something entirely different. Right? So once a girl came in, she was 20 or so, and she was very overweight. And so as she finished sentences, what came out for her payoffs? I'm overweight because I eat too much. I eat too much sweets. I eat too much because it tastes good, right? Taste is very important for me because. Now, taste is a body turn-on. It's a love substitute. I like sweets because I need sweetness in my life. I don't have very much sweetness in my life because people are mean to me. They criticize me. They don't hold me. My dad used to hit me. My mom slapped me. So her body needs some sweet, tender things, you see. The taste is her master. Oral gratification. This is a big one. This is a giant love substitute. What goes in oral gratification? Thumb sucking, fingernail biting, smoking, chewing tobacco, chewing gum, having pop all the time, swiggle down your throat. Freud said it was shooting out your lips, criticizing people, swallowing things whole, making biting comments. It's all oral gratification. He really took it to the limit. And if you want to read all these, turn to Homecoming, the infancy index of suspicion. And there are 16 questions right there. And they'll show you if you have oral fixation. And what does oral fixation come from? Baby, infancy, nursing. They don't nurse, they'll die. But there's so much more to nursing than getting food, right? We even have a handout you're going to get. Nursing is more than feeding. It's succorance, it's warmth, it's comfort. The nursing couple, it's so many things. Oral gratification. Now, she said some other things. I like to eat pies, and I like to eat cakes. And I like to eat cakes because we lived on a farm. My father was out on the tractor or out all day long. If I would cook a pie or a cake, he'd come in and eat it with me. We'd both eat it, but he would talk. I could get him to talk if I could. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach, right? And so she got love supplies from Dad if she could feed him. Get it? So this is a giant thing. Later on, she said, my mom said if I didn't skinny up, I'd never catch a man. Because the way to catch a man is with a skinny body. And I wanted to prove to her that that was wrong and that I could get a man with my personality. So this, I'll get as fat as I want, and still I'll have a good boyfriend someday. You watch, Mom. And so here she was proving that conditional love doesn't work. And what was she going to prove? That she could get a person to love her unconditionally, and the love target would not be her body, it would be her character trait. Well, that's okay. Only healthy people with good characters don't abuse their body, because their bodies are sacred. They don't need this whole business. So that's why that wouldn't work. But then she got down here. I'm also fat because I don't want to be female. This is called, if you get, I don't want to have boys like me, because it's nothing but trouble. Look at Mom and Dad, they fight all the time. I don't want a guy to like me for my body and my figure. And I don't like being female, because it's very humiliating when all the girls are asked out and not me. So if a boy doesn't ask me out, or I don't go to the dance, or I'm not popular, all I have to say is, it's because I'm so fat. And then I never have to admit that maybe there's other reasons why you don't have any friends. So it's like the person that studies will not study as hard as she can for the final test. So if she gets a low grade, what can she say? I didn't study. And what is her greatest fear? I'm dumb. So this is what, how can you block your femininity? You can be anorexic, so thin that you don't have any figure, or you can be so fat that you're neuter and you don't have any figure. Now, why doesn't she want to be a female? Because being a female is trouble. It's sex. You can be a sex object. You can be lust bait. You can be a dumb doormat, clean the toilets and the bird cages, make the food, wash the clothes, be the babysitter. She doesn't want any part of this, do you see? So she wants to be neutral. And so that's the kind of things that are paying off here. Getting love from Dad, not being female, proving her mom wrong, getting the sweets, getting the taste, the oral gratification, and being different than her sister. What do you think her sister is going to be like? She's going to be skinny, and she's going to have lots of boyfriends. She's going to be popular. She's going to be Sally Rally. See, that's the way you do it. To opposites compete in the whole thing. So have any of you ever thought about your own hang-ups and what was happening in your family?
Oh sure, I've thought lots about it. But the promise always applies with these, that recovery is even better.
Yes, because recovery and being in your real self is far better than all these little love substitutes. That's what you want to find out. And the joy of that is in the inner child work, when you can go back and start undoing the lies that your brother said about you, the sexual abuse, the models from Mom being a doormat, dirt maid. Did you want?
You mentioned the same thing, Stu, because I ended up being overweight.
Yeah.
My sister's tall and thin.
Yeah. So it's
And
right.
I didn't like competition. She liked competition.
Yeah. And you never have to compete with her if you're going to be a neuter. And besides, you got a lot more sweets than she did.
But I married, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. If that's your goal. Right. So
Your mother wasn't the doormat.
what if your mother wasn't a doormat?
Yeah.
You mean in doing this?
Yeah. What if she was the other way?
Yeah, if you mean bossy or?
Strong. Really strong.
Well, there's lots more things than what mother is like that makes women so they don't want to be female, or they do want to be female. But if the mother loves being female, and she's not compensating by being bossy and strict and in charge of everybody. See, mothers and fathers are supposed to be equal. The president of the church says marriage in its truest sense is a partnership of equals, not the man is the boss. That's old stuff to say that. And even if the man is the boss, you're supposed to obey in righteousness So he's not the boss if he's in his negative, that's for sure. And now we have marriage in its truest sense, highest sense, which is very rare, is a partnership of equals. So if the mother loves being female, the daughters are too. If the dad loves being male, the sons love being male. But there's a lot of emasculated males and a lot of stripped females who have been taught that it's bad to be a female. We talked about PMS once, didn't we? Anyone remember this? How you finish sentences. Being female to my dad meant, remember, and if dad says, a good girl is a dirt maid, she cleans the house, she fixes the food, she changes the baby's diaper. And then mom says, being female to my mom meant 10 times as fast as you can go. And her responses are the same. Dirt maid, housekeeper, cleaner, servant, sex object, bookkeeper, secretary, phone. I'm no chauvinist pigs and won't even answer the phone. Then every 28 days, here comes this reminder that you're one of those. And so being female to my mom means, to my dad means, and then the big one, being female to me means. So that has a lot to do with the psychogenic part of PMS. And remember the continuum we drew that was long like this? And then it had a line going up like this, remember this? And these would be the physical, the psychological parts of PMS, and these would be the physical. And you could find yourself on here. If a girl finishes sentences, being female was horrible, to my mom, to my dad, and to me, then all the pills in the world is not going to fix her PMS. She's going to need some therapy and some inner child work. But if she says being female was great, my mom loved being female, and dad respected her, and was that, then she's going to have a lot more physical parts of her PMS than this. So in this continuum, you find out what percentage, where you are, what percentage is which in each case. That's a great continuum. We talked about this last time, didn't we? Okay, so that's another example of how hang-ups are chosen, by how their parents feel about their roles. Okay, did I answer your question? What would happen if a mom?
Yeah, I just wondered if there was some rule there, if the mother was more a strong person, not a woman.
The rule is if the mom loves being female, the daughter will. The man loves being male. A lot of same-sex attraction cases are going to be guys whose father didn't like them, and the mother tried real hard to help them and overdid it, and so they're terrified they can't fill up a female's needs, and they're looking for their daddy, and they're going to sexualize the missing father, and they have phobia that the mother will gobble them up. So they have a phobia of sex with a female, and they're sexualizing the missing father. And then with the lesbian, you have the same thing. Not always, but those are some big things. Yeah. With lesbians, you have the same thing, that they've been hurt by father, abused, something, and guys just want sex, so they're looking for the mom. Very few lesbian patients have really healthy relationships with their moms. And nowadays, instead of a pure homosexual male or a pure lesbian female, you see bisexual more and more and more, because our society is so loose with sex now, and society teaches that sex is, it's not something to celebrate a mystic bond, but it's something to use for a love substitute. So then we have more and more of that. Any questions about that? I want to talk about rejection protection. This is a big factor that comes up when people are finishing sentences. Rejection protection. We see it not only in pornography, but the fear of failure and the fear of rejection is often something that'll drive people to a certain hang-up. There's an old saying, to risk, let's see, to risk nothing means that you are nothing. And so lots of people don't like risk because it's going to be rejection, and they have a horrible rejection wound and a horrible phobia of being rejected. So risk is very dangerous. I'll show you, once a patient came to me and she was paranoid. And paranoid is another word for suspicious. And the reason she came is because she kept taking her car to the mechanic to make sure it was not bugged. Means she was sure there was a microphone in her car and that someone was trying to record her speaking. And repeatedly the mechanics would say, there's no microphone in your car. And she was devastated each time. And as we work with her through the years, because it takes a long time, and she would say things to me like, you believe me, don't you, Dr. Ellsworth, that these people are after me? You believe me, don't you? And I would say, I believe that you believe it with your whole heart. And I believe that this really scares you a lot. And I know how terrified you are. But as the months went by, and she would come every week, here comes the picture. She worked for this huge firm, and she worked for the head of the firm down in Texas. And as she and him worked together, as so often happens, he was having marital problems, so what was going to happen? The secretary and the boss were falling in love, which really is not in love, it's in need. Because she didn't have anybody, and the one woman he had, he felt she was always criticizing him. And of course, the secretary would never criticize him. She'd lose her job, right? But he thought this is love, when it really is need, and he couldn't understand why his wife never dressed up like his secretary. She's home chasing the kids and changing the diapers and on, so she didn't dress up. But anyway, as she's a good Baptist woman, and she knows that adultery is a great sin. And as she starts falling in love with him, and him with her in need, they get very close to celebrating their love with sex. Now this, of course, terrifies her. And so she quits her job and runs away. And she moves from Texas to Oregon, right? And she is sure that this man that she almost had an affair with, his helpers, his vice president and other, are now sent by him to find her. And she's terrified that they will find her, and if they get her, they're going to take her back. And they're going to sue her for ruining the whole company and causing the marriage of the owner, and on and on. Horrible fears. But deep down, her biggest fear is she loves this guy to pieces. And she's so terrified that her love will get her right back into this horrible mess. She'll commit adultery and go straight to hell. And so every time she can fight these people who are after her that she's made up, she feels safer and safer and safer. And she even used to tell me, Dr. Ellsworth, I want you to see this list. And she had a list of the license plates of cars that passed her house. And Dr. Ellsworth, she says, these are the same license plates that come back in the afternoon or evening. Why are you laughing? You're going to work and coming home from work, but she's sure, this is called paranoia, that they're trying to see if they can find her and take her picture. And one time on Halloween night, she was passing out tricks or treats to the kids, and somebody took her picture. Of course, it was a parent who wanted to see little Jimmy, who was only 3, and was dressed up like an angel or something, getting his tricks or treats, but she was sure it was the mafia. And they were after her to get her and take her back. And get that? So even in paranoid fears and the way they do it. Now, paranoid people get very dangerous in the prison once. When I worked there for 2 years, every Monday and Thursday, there was a guy who had shot somebody. And I went into his cell and talked to him. And he said, Dr. Ellsworth, after he learned that I would listen and understand and that I didn't have to tell anybody, there's a little man that comes to see me. And he's only about 8 inches tall. And he says, and he's right here on the table. And I try and catch him, but I never can catch him. But this is my confidant and my protection. And he tells me who's after me in this prison and who's not. And he was the one that told me to kill Fred. Because he said, if you don't kill Fred, Fred's going to kill you. Now, who is this fantasy little 8-inch man? It's made up by him to protect him from rejection and being killed and being hurt. It's fantastic how these things work out. And when people can start figuring them out, see, the same thing with multiple personality disorders, which you very often have in cases of satanic ritual abuse, severe abuse, sexual abuse. People dissociate. This means they actually break off in reality into another person. Now, lots of women who have been sexually abused will tell you that while the sexual abuse was going on, they got out of their bodies and went up on the ceiling so they couldn't feel the pain, or they went off. This girl told me today, she went off and hid in a dark pit. Now, this is when people split off in order to escape pain and escape rejection and humiliation, showing the strength of the human spirit, you see, that they just can't take this. And so there's so many little tricks that people can use to escape rejection and to get love supplies, because human beings need love, like a fish needs water. And if they don't get love, they're going to get into some of these weird things to get a love substitute, and they all make sense. And to figure out why, by finishing sentences, I'm fat because, I criticize others because, I yell and scream because, those can get you to the payoffs if you'll honestly answer them and go as fast as you can and blurt. So let's take a little break, and then we're going to talk about some of the most common problems that I've heard in my practice and show you how they usually go down, which would help you a lot. Okay?